So here we are, as a human race, we have amazing power. We do. Humans have power above all other creatures, And it can be used for good or bad, The power to overcome Maya, by making the right choice. Maya means the illusory energy of the material world. By making the right choices, by following the Vedas, by accepting this supreme authority, by harmonizing with nature's law. That's a power that is amazing, to get off the wheel of birth and death, That's an ability, a power to actually understand I'm spirit soul. I'm not the material body. And that's what it's all for.
Hey there and welcome to the Breaking Trail podcast. My name is Ruben and you'll also meet here my friend and teacher Balakia. I once saw Spider-Man and there's one quote that I remember, and that is, "With great power comes great responsibility." So that is what we'll speak about today, what we are meant to use this tremendous, powerful human form of life for, and the results of not using it in the proper way. So, happy to have you here, and let's start.
You got on your lumberjack shirt. You're looking good.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I got it from my mom, as all of my other, like 95% of my other clothes I get from my mom.
Moms never quit buying clothes for the kids. It's their opportunity to engage in service.
That's very, very true.
Yeah.
I really see that with my mom. Like, that's so natural for her. Like, she wants to be in that situation. It makes her happy. And if I don't allow her to serve in that way, then she's not.
Oh yeah.
Happy.
Like if you don't eat their food, they get totally offended.
Yeah. Well. But she fortunately is quite, she's very respectful, makes vegetarian food and,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, but if somehow you don't accept it, the point's still the same. They get offended.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But that's moms. Moms are like that.
Yeah.
Oh, moms. I don't care where they are or what. It's the same.
And we should be, just happy that our moms are doing all they're doing for us. I mean, wow. Oh, and what they have done for us previously. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, they did a lot. Took care of us, made it possible to live.
Yeah.
Being abandoned by moms doesn't work too well, physically or psychologically.
Yeah, you see that, and
yeah, more and more.
Exactly. And people I mean, there's, I guess I've heard most, but I haven't seen that research, but I'm sure it goes both ways. Like, the people that don't have a clear father figure in their life have a much higher chance of ending up in prison and things like this.
Yeah. Well, Krishna's arrangement is nature's arrangement, is that you have a father and a mother.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it was designed. And that's why in the Vedic system, in a marriage, it was declared from the very beginning, there will be no divorce.
Yeah.
Because then the parents don't leave the child. One or the other doesn't go away, because the child, by nature's arrangement, is attached to both mother and father. So here comes the divorce, and they got to make a decision, which ones will I go with, or usually they don't even have that decision. They just stay with the mother.
Yeah.
But they want to be with the father too, or there's fighting between the mother and the father, and their two best friends are fighting
and
each
you
other.
have to be the one who's like meddling, who's trying to make diplomacy, like, oh, don't say that, and that's not true, and sorting it out. And you're like,
yeah,
you're a kid.
If the system is carried out like it's supposed to be, then there's harmony all across the board.
Well,
and you get good results.
But that's...
But it's not like that now because we've gone our own ways, according to our individual desires for more pleasure, sensual experience, or, our lust, is transferred from this person to another person and whatever.
Yeah.
And so we got a mess,
We like, why can't we just stick to the plan? What's the problem with that? Why do we have to make our own? Try to make our own.
Because we want to be the maker of our own way and, follow the demands of the mind and the senses. And I would say, I don't know a percent, but, 90+% of marriages are founded on lust. I mean, that's why you choose this person to marry, because they somehow excite you. They bring out, certain desires and pleasures that you want to fulfill. And this person has the position to promise, okay, I will fulfill that. But of course it's impossible, which means automatically I'll make you happy.
Yeah.
But it's impossible, of course, because we're not the body, and fulfilling all desires and sensual pleasures still doesn't make a person happy. And so lust, as we read in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, starting with text 62, lust breeds anger. And that's why there's so much anger in marriage relationships. And it's so known and so common now that people don't even bother to get married anymore. I mean,
exactly.
They just don't even get married. I mean, they don't want to enter into that complicated, involved institution. Because then when it all does fall apart, which, 50% plus do, then you got to go through a whole legal struggle to get out of it. Whereas if you just never get married, you just walk in and walk out.
But we're
goodbye.
like so afraid of making that commitment. We just want to have all doors open, because I might have chosen the wrong thing, or this might be like not the right person for me. So I should, like you're saying, just prefer to.
Yeah.
It's so cheap, It's so cheap. Everything's cheap.
It's just cheap is the word, right? It's no seriousness, there's no commitment. And the male species.
Yeah, you mean different people before.
By nature, by the time they do get married, they've been through, flashes of I love you or I don't love you many, many times over. I mean, the females too, the men and the women. But so they know it comes and goes. I mean, they already know that. I remember, this. And, it was so attractive. It was so promising. But then again, I got tired of that.
Well,
so they know that's a large possibility in this, quote, marriage possibility. So they don't even bother.
No.
Why get involved? Yeah. And, like it's become a status symbol to almost just have partners and don't get married. I remember reading an article about Iceland. I read this article, and I forget the percentage, but it was a huge percentage of people that come together don't get married. And it's like a status symbol. It's like, okay, we've transcended this marriage encumbrance. So Iceland as a country, as a common consciousness, we could say, of the citizens, prides itself in, we don't get married. We come together, we have our, relationship, and as long as it's, we're producing fruit and pleasure and so on, it's good. We have our children, but, when all of that fades away, we just move on and get another situation. It's like, and there you go. But what about the kids that get drugged through all this? 3 dads and 3, different complete scenarios. And, And of course, as we, know from statistics, it's not speculation. Many of the children get molested by the new dads because, hey, it's not mine. It's just a young female in my house.
Right.
It's not that fatherly affection and protective nature and care.
Exactly.
I can't harm my daughter. It's not my daughter. It's just an, everly increasing attractive female in my house that as puberty comes in and things develop, they become more and more attractive, more so than the mother.
Yeah.
So there you go. Why not? So you've got, a huge percentage of the population has, been through that.
And how that affects someone when they've grown up themselves into, there's something about breaking that cycle as well. I mean, that's
lifetime damage.
exactly.
And nobody wants to feel responsible or guilt or like, again, it's just becoming normal. This kind of behavior, just becoming that's what happens.
There's because coming back to this point of cheapness, there before this talk I was reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the human form of life, as we wanted to discuss today, and there's a quote where Bhaktivedanta says that no animal, bird or beast is bereft of sense pleasure. In every species of life, including the human form of life, such happiness is immensely obtainable. The human form of life is, however, not meant for such cheap happiness. The human form of life is for attaining eternal and unlimited happiness by spiritual realization. So it's
cheap happiness. Yeah, there's a lot of passages by Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada and Bhagavad Gita also. Right. In various purports, and it's somehow echoed. I don't know.
Yeah, your voice is doubled now.
Yeah. I have two voices.
To speak.
I can say twice as much in the same amount of time.
It's like a friend of mine, Alan, he was chanting with japa beads, but he had one japa bead in his right hand and one in his left hand, like at the same time.
Okay, so you do one round, you do two.
Exactly, because
okay, so that's called multitasking.
Maybe that's not the best within meditation.
No, that's not the system. Sure. So in Bhaktivedanta's purport, like chapter 3, text 16 of Bhagavad Gita, these are just short little statements, but by nature's law, this human form of life is specifically meant for self-realization. So, by nature's law, human life is meant for spiritual realization, specifically. And he says the same thing in various places. In the human form of life, one can conquer. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by the cultivation of God consciousness under able guidance. The same thing, the entanglement of material existence.
And this is
which includes being entangled in the law of karma and all the attachments and, attractions and, the overpowering, control of lust and all of that. I mean, all that's the entanglement of the soul in the material world. And the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's a few, quotes, very, very similar, all very similar. Human life is meant for the cultivation of spiritual knowledge in eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he goes on, and this is in chapter 4, text number 11, he says. And he goes on to quote that the executive heads of all states and all planets are obliged to impart this lesson to the citizens by education, culture, and devotion. Yeah.
Much.
In other words, the executive heads of all states are intended to spread the science of God consciousness so that the people may take advantage of this great science and pursue a successful path, utilizing the opportunity of the human form of life.
Exactly. Wow.
So, it's, we know all these things, because of studying this and hearing this and accepting this. But most people don't know this, unfortunately.
And Lynn told me before this talk, she said, you need to tell them this quote, she said, and it goes like this: what is popular is not necessarily true, and what is true is not necessarily popular. There
you go. So. Yeah. And more, what is true is absolutely unacceptable. It's not only not
I see
popular.
What you mean. Wow.
It's not like, okay, it's not popular, it's not trendy, it's not
But it's
cool.
Okay.
It's like unacceptable. You can't say this. So it's, it's moved in that direction.
Yeah.
Very, very rapidly, hasn't
it? Wow, it has, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. One more from Bhagavad Gita. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain God consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. So, there is a purpose for every form of life. There's 8,400,000 species of life in the material world, according to the Vedas. And each one has a specific purpose. It's not like they're just random, for no reason, forms of life. They're fulfilling karmas, they're fulfilling desires of individuals, they're fulfilling, their place in the ecosystem, in the food chain and the whole workings of nature. I mean, there's a purpose for every species.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, you're a, natural climate, environmental person. And, as soon as man steps in and for one reason or another eliminates a species, through extinction or whatever, that it causes a disruption in the whole cycle. Not just that person and those people and those bodies disappear, but it disrupts the whole system.
Exactly.
So, each species has a purpose, and the purpose of the human form is spiritual realization.
When you said that, the other day here, I'm by a lake. We're at this retreat, and I was sitting by the lake and doing my japa, my meditation, and I was looking at the lake, and there was suddenly like a fish coming out of the lake, jumping high, like half a meter or almost a meter. I guess he was, chasing some insect and grabbing that. I was just thinking like, okay, wow. So you have the little insect there on the surface, and then the fish comes and eat the insect, and then after maybe 5 minutes, there was something big coming up from the water of the lake, and then it starts flying up. So there's some kind of eagle, huge bird that has, I guess, without me seeing it, been diving.
Dove.
Dove into the water, and he came up, and his claws, he had this fish,
Really?
May not be the same fish, I don't know, but it was in the same lake, so it's possible, and it started flying, flapping, and went away, and I was like, wow, that's
Wow, that's special.
That's
You know, I mean, you don't see that very often.
very rare. I've never seen it before.
No, I never have either. I mean, that's Nature Channel stuff.
I wish I had a camera ready and I could become a millionaire from the.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that when eagles dove into the water, they could actually go under and swim and get some. I mean, I don't know if they swim, but whatever they do, catch the fish and then come up and then fly away.
I don't know. That's what happened. So I mean, I guess he wasn't like for minutes swimming around in the water and then suddenly came up. You know, I guess he must have just like dove in and then
yeah, and then,
I just saw him come up, so I was speculating. You know.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a eagle type bird called an osprey. You know the ospreys?
No.
That's what they live on. They're big birds. They're carnivorous birds, but they live on fish.
Yeah.
And you'll find them around water sources, lakes, and big bodies of water, sounds, and so on. And that's what they do. They just see a fish with their X-ray vision under the water, Polaroid lenses on their eyeballs, cut the glare, you know, and then dive in and get the fish and come up and fly away.
And that's kind of like they're fulfilling their. I mean, yeah. Is that what? Yeah. How are they fulfilling their, like, what's the purpose of being in that form of life? what's their
fish control?
Make sure that the fishes are taking over.
And you notice at the top of the food chain are the carnivores. You know, there's fewer of those. You know, the numbers of the carnivores is much less than the number of the omnivores, which is less than the herbivores, which is less than the insects, and it just expands in a pyramidal fashion as it goes down to lower forms of life or more dominant. And the, higher forms of life or are, less. So, a carnivore doesn't need to eat as much. Look at a horse. I mean, they eat all day.
That's true.
You find a herd of horses in any natural setting, and if they're not eating, it's unusual. At least some are eating. Some might be laying down. And cows, they just eat all the time. And when they lay down, they chew their cud. I mean, they're still eating. So they eat. But the carnivores, like a lion or big cats, they might eat once every few days. They just kill something, they stash it, they go eat a little bit, and then they take a rest because it takes longer to digest, and they don't need to eat so much. And so anyway, everything's working according to nature's beautiful arrangement.
Yeah.
And the humans, look at the humans. I mean, they do everything they shouldn't do and very little that they should do.
Yeah.
Because they don't follow the plan. The animals follow instinct. Even the plants. I mean, they bloom when they're supposed to. They produce fruit when they're supposed to. They lose their leaves when they're supposed to.
That's true.
That's true. And they go into a dormant winter stage as necessary. And, they're on the cycle. They're harmonizing with the seasons. And
you don't suddenly see a bird or you don't suddenly see a tree blooming in the middle of the winter or producing flowers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Of course, with the climate so messed up, now it gets, like spring in the middle of winter, and the trees, they don't know it's not spring, and they often bloom too early now, and the cold comes back in. And
I mean, my mom's a hut keeper. She said in the end of July, like a few weeks ago, they had, or actually, not so long ago, like a week ago, they had snow, a lot of snow, and the hut was overfilled with all the people who were in tents because they didn't bring gloves and hat and the warm equipment, so they were suffering. So they were all squeezing in 2 people in one bed, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of out of kilter, as they say.
Out of kilter, yeah.
And what I was just going to mention, we were hiking in the mountains just last week. And, elevation also affects what grows. And so we were in a higher elevation. Well, first we were above tree line. So there was basically no trees, just shrubs and different high altitude plants. Then we came down lower and there was pine trees, and then we came down lower and there's birch trees, and it was like a line.
Yeah.
Okay, above this line, there's pine trees. Below this line, there's birch trees. And the species that are in those bodies, I mean, they just grow where they're supposed to. They follow the rules, so to speak. And unconsciously so. I mean, they're not saying, okay, I'm a birch, I can't go above this line.
I'm not allowed to.
Oh, I'm a pine, don't come up here, This is not your territory. That's what humans do. They just are controlled by nature. But when the soul gets to the human form of life, what is the difference? What is the difference? That's what we need to understand. We have what? We have advanced intelligence. We have advanced mental facilities.
Yeah.
We have reasoning power. We have the ability to make choices. We have the ability to question. We have, a body that's amazingly adaptable and dexterous. We can do things with all of our different bodily parts and senses, that are out of the reach of the lower forms of life. So we have a very special set of equipment in the human form of life,
Yeah.
Now, as we've just read from Scripture, you read from Srimad Bhagavatam, I read from Bhagavad Gita, what the purpose of that equipment is: spiritual realization, God realization, solving the complexities of life, entanglements of life, putting an end to the miseries of life. The material world is a place of misery for all life forms. I just gave a public lecture for Poland yesterday, and that was the topic: the threefold miseries of material existence.
But I mean, some people. What do you say to someone who doesn't experience that? Like, I mean, some of us are kind of happy in this world. I mean, things are okay. Like, life is going by. It's up and down, but
But it's still miserable. I mean, come on. If you've got teeth, they're going to cause you problems. Who hasn't been to the dentist? Very few. And if you haven't yet, you will.
Yeah.
Or if you never go to the dentist, eventually your teeth will fall out or you'll die first. In other words, everybody is experiencing them. Who hasn't been bitten by mosquitoes? Who hasn't been hassled by, midges or, been in deep forest, and most people can say I haven't, and been threatened by the presence of bears or, had amoebas, go into your body and attack your digestive system or breathe in some bacteria and viruses and got COVID. I mean, everybody's experiencing misery, but we're so proud and so prone to just not, let's say admit it's miserable. That we just say, oh, it's not so bad.
No, because... Yeah.
And the mental misery, I mean, the mental misery is huge.
Yeah.
Worse than the physical misery.
It's true.
Who was that? This Simone Biles, or what? I think that was her name. I could be wrong on that. Anyway, the greatest gymnast in the world. She just pulled out of the Olympics. I mean, she is declared by everybody as the greatest gymnast in the world. she won gold last Olympics and so on, and she is expected to win basically almost everything this year. She pulled out because of mental issues, mental instabilities, mental, inability to focus. And so she pulled out of one event and another event and then another one. And, she was praised by some and criticized by others and so on. But we're talking about a mental story here.
Yeah.
Physically, she's at the top of the game, probably more physically fit than almost anybody on the planet.
Yeah.
Because gymnasts they require a level of fitness that's beyond a lot of discipline.
For sure. Yeah.
But she pulled out because of mental issues. Well, is that miserable or not? Yes, it is. Why are we so afraid to admit the truth? And if we do admit it, like she was attacked by a lot of people. Oh, you're a quitter. You don't have the fortitude. You got to overcome these things.
Yeah.
You got to stand up and be stoic and, carry on regardless.
Yeah.
And she's saying, but hey, I'm high in the air and I lose my positioning and I don't know where I am and I don't land properly, I can kill myself or I can break my neck or I can, destroy various parts of my body.
Yeah.
So anyway, anybody who says there's no misery, life is okay, is simply in denial. That's all. How about the natural phenomena that's occurring right now all over the planet? It's causing misery undeniably to a lot of people.
That's not question. I mean, that's very obvious. I think maybe that's some. I mean, there's always a bright side to everything. I guess maybe that's some bright side to the situation that we're in. Like we're seeing, wow, this is a misery. This is a place of misery. Like dark things happen. This is not a nice situation.
Yeah. I mean, the wildfires are burning up. The United States, Western United States.
Yeah.
Turkey and Greece and Sicily and Siberia and, on and on it goes.
The floods in Germany and
the floods in Germany and that was just in Beijing, big floods, even flooded subways, people up to almost their neck in water in the subway cars.
Yeah.
And anyway, whatever, and you can say, oh, it's climate change. Well, where is that coming from? If it's true, I mean, the scientists are saying it's man-made, and certainly we're not helping, in any way. So I guess this leads us to another point about misuse of the human form of life.
Exactly. I was just going to say the connection between that, because that might be like, what is the connection between that misery and how we're not using the human form of life properly? I mean,
yeah.
So
here we are, as a human race, we have amazing power. We do. Humans have power above all other creatures. And it can be used for good or bad. The power to overcome Maya, by making the right choice. Maya means the illusory energy of the material world. By making the right choices, by following the Vedas, by accepting this supreme authority, by harmonizing with nature's law. That's a power that is amazing, to get off the wheel of birth and death. That's an ability, a power to actually understand I'm spirit, soul. I'm not the material body. And that's what it's all for. But if I don't use it for that, which is for the good of myself and all others, including the other forms of life, including planet Earth, including, pleasing the demigods who control the weather and so on. That's a big subject, but, it's good for everybody. But if I use it incorrectly, then it's bad for everybody. It goes one way or the other. It's not just some nonchalant, doesn't matter, doesn't make any difference subject to it. So if I take this mind and this intelligence and this, amazing senses to incorporate all that, into one powerful package of humanity and use it incorrectly, I can do the greatest harm.
Yeah.
So you can do the greatest good or you can do the greatest harm. And that, unfortunately, is what is occurred.
And that's kind of our free choice to choose where do we want to place our energy, where do we want to go.
It is. I mean, let's elaborate on that a little bit. Let's just take, the scientists who are on this higher level of, intellectual development, and they're driven by, the desire to know and to discover and to examine and, so on. And so they use all their equipment they've got for spiritual realization to develop, amazing scientific techniques of discovery, like microscopes and electron microscopes, so they can see, tiny, tiny, tiny things that, previously with just, natural senses were impossible to see, But now they can examine things on the minutest level, or telescopes so they can, look into space and see things far, far away that in detail that they couldn't see before, etc. In other words, extending the ability of the senses, So with all of that development, they can now what? Split the atom. Here's, molecules and here's atoms. And, there's so much energy here. And stored in this tiny, tiny atom is an amazing, amount of energy. If we split this atom, we can release it. And if we split a lot of atoms at the same time, we can have an energy force that we don't know about before. And it can blow up a whole bunch of stuff. We can make a bomb that can blow up, the world, Or we can, of course, use it for a peaceful purpose to create nuclear energy, you see. But everything comes with a price, so the nuclear reactors leak, over time they become old and things start breaking down and radiation is released. And, look at Chernobyl, look at Fukushima, look at, various places we may not even know about, things happened and it wasn't reported, especially in the earlier days, And so we pollute the atmosphere with, radiation and, people get, increased rates of cancer and, on and on and on it goes. So even the peaceful use of this development is not ultimately all good.
But the development itself is it neutral, or how about the development of that technology? Like, is that a...
Well, let's just say, what's the point? What's the point? Do we need that? God has given everything we need. Did he give us nuclear reactors? Did he give us the ability to split atoms? Is that described in the Vedas? And the fact is, no. He gave us all of this to develop spiritual realization. If you're focusing on all this material development to increase the material standard of life, which means to increase the sensual pleasures and comforts, of life, and develop the big industrial enterprises to produce all these things, but of course at the top of all that is somebody raking off a lot of money, you see. I mean, it's all connected with increasing sensual experiences, making my material enjoyment better.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're making a big problem,
Yeah.
All this climate change, if it's, man-made, is because of what? The misdirected use of the human form of life. I mean, what is the biggest, green gas polluter?
From animals. That's...
Yeah, animal food industry.
Yeah. The whole industry.
Why do we need animal food industry when the human form of life is designed to eat vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds and grains and dairy products? That's prescribed in Scripture. This is human food. Why do we need to eat animal food?
No.
We don't.
No, and all of these things are needs that have been placed upon us. And a person who wants to have freedom and truly wanna, I mean, there are many people of that in the world, should reflect on this. Like, where does this need for eating this or doing this come? Like, it's not just that I came up with that and I, had a realization like, oh, I really need to eat meat to be happier, or, there was somehow planted in us. These needs have been like planted in us from the marketing and from society,
exactly. And of course, anyway, we won't go into all the different answers that people could give you to that. Oh, but the Neanderthal man did this, and the cavemen did that. And, the hunter-gatherers, and they had to survive by. Okay, so let's just say that's true. But now we don't have that same situation.
That's true.
I don't live in a cave, and I don't need to kill an animal because I don't have any vegetables to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need to do that now. I have advanced farming techniques with my human abilities. We can grow food enough in limited amount of space to feed the world.
And
I mean, now it's able, it's suitable.
And I guess that's like a parenthesis, but that's one weakness of the argument of eating like the cave diet, is were we healthy when we were cavemen? Were we living in the natural way, giving the body the best food that it was meant to have? I mean, maybe not.
And were the caveman's main purpose spiritual realization?
I didn't think about that. Of course. Yeah.
Caveman consciousness is caveman consciousness. It's a covered lower form of life consciousness.
Right.
It's basically animal life, whether you call it a human or not.
Yeah.
It's eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and that's the end of the story.
Exactly.
So, but if you believe the Vedic history, it paints a very different picture. It doesn't even give us this, picture of how it used to be. There were civilizations that were far, far more advanced than what we have now.
Yeah.
And the opulence was unimaginable. What opulence we have now is like, pauperism compared to how it was then. And because the system was being followed, and all the sacrifices and rituals and offerings and devotion and dedicated to, higher personalities that are in charge of, the weather and all the necessities of the universe, because they were being performed, the demigods that are in charge of these things were pleased, and they provided profuse amounts of everything necessary. It said the hills, Mother Earth was so happy, and everything was in such harmony that, the streams produced gems, the seas produced gems, and, gold was just a common, metal. It was everywhere, and, prosperity was like beyond anything we have even a glimpse of today, and health, was people weren't always sick, and the mental health was so stable and solid, and life was exciting because of spiritual excitement, spiritual upliftment, spiritual happiness and satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's a happy society. That's a prosperous society. And people were, by being a member of that society, growing spiritually. They were using the human form of life as this was it properly intended to be used, you know.
Uh,
But when we entered Kali Yuga, which is the age we're in now, the age of quarrel, chaos, confusion, degradation, the influence is the opposite of that spiritual upliftment influence. You know, then things became lower and lower. Consciousness diminished, you know, and all the miseries increased. Yeah. You know, the disease, the pestilence, the mental, you know, issues, the weak psyches, you know, the term of time, span of life in the human form was reduced, you know, so the duration of life was greatly shortened, you know, and, you know, people started using their facilities for spiritual realization for material purposes.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You know. Yeah. And so here we are.
And there's a, you know, I was reading through Srimad Bhagavatam for these quotes, and there was an aspect to it that I thought we can bring up as well, which is, we can just read the whole quote. You know, now we're just going straight ahead on it. But this from Bhaktivedanta Swami, he says, this material world is called the world of death. Every living being, beginning from Brahma, whose duration of life is some thousands of millions of years, down to the microbial germs who live for a few seconds only, is struggling for existence. Therefore, this life is sort of a fight with material nature, which opposes death upon all. And then it says, he continues, and it says, no one will survive in the struggle with material nature. You know, sort of a fight with material nature. It's, you know, again, because we're not harmonizing, and then we...
Yeah. And where does the fight come from? What is this struggle? Trying to not die.
Exactly.
Trying to stay in this body. The body's temporary. By design, all matter is temporary. See? But the soul is eternal. So we've got right there an immediate conflict. An eternal spirit soul in a temporary material body. But identifying with that temporary material body.
To the extent that we're afraid of dying when it's not, like you said before, it's not possible to die in the real sense of the word.
Yeah. Maintaining, unabortably so, our eternal existence, but identifying with a temporary material body immediately produces conflict. So I want to live forever because I do. That's a given. But my body is very temporary. And so the struggle is trying to hang on to this body, which I think is me. In other words, don't die. And so Bhaktivedanta said, nobody wins the struggle. You know? Brahma doesn't win the struggle, and he, you know, his lifespan is so long that, you know, it's like people wouldn't even believe it if they heard it. But what did Bhaktivedanta say? Thousands of millions?
Thousands of millions of years.
Yeah. You know, and there's details in the scriptures about that, but we don't need to go there. Down to the microbial, you know, little germ, which lives for
a few seconds,
a minute or less. Yeah. You know, but everybody's coming and going.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's here and gone. As far as the body goes, see. So everybody's struggling, you know. One of our dogs just caught a little young pheasant 3 days ago, you know, unfortunately. And so damaged the pheasant. You know, Sergei took the pheasant out of the dog's mouth and brought it home, and, you know, but it was struggling to survive. You know, I mean, it was injured, and, you know, we tried to help it as much as possible, but, you know, it left its body. And it was a struggle. You know, it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. And, you know, that's just another example of reality in the material world. It's a struggle, against nature. Nature's arrangement is what it is. I mean, that fish that the eagle, caught and took away was struggling to survive, flapping and flopping in the talons of the eagle,
Yeah.
But I'm sure it didn't survive, right? And that was nature's arrangement. The eagle eats the fish,
Yeah.
And so there you go. You can't win on that level. No, the most clever scientists will never be successful.
But
we're not supposed to win on that cycle. That's on that
Right.
level. That's the point.
Right.
That's not the stage we win on.
So like the fight is over. The body will die. We just have to accept that and do the best we can in the time that we have between, being born and dying and leaving this world. And
Yes. Yes. So in the human form, that's why it is declared in scriptures, don't waste the human form of life. Don't waste it, because it is very, very rare. See, very few living entities get a human form. Very few. Just look, out your window. I mean, you can even almost live in a city and look out your window and see so many other forms of life, trees and grass and, insects and all kinds of life forms, which people are in. Every one of those life forms is a person in that body. And here you are, one person looking out the window. You go to the forest and it's amplified many times over. One person standing in the forest alone, just looking around. You don't even have to look 360 degrees. Just look, a few degrees left and right, and you can see so many people. Man, this place is crowded. So many trees, so many little sub-trees and plants and bushes, and the little guys that live down there, and, some birds in the trees and whatever, You can't even count it. And here you are, one person in a human form.
That's true. Yeah.
So people in human bodies are in the minority.
Yeah.
By a large, large degree. You see. So it's a rare birth. This is the point. It's declared in Scripture. The human form of life is a very rare birth.
But
Go ahead.
Maybe we could explain how then, like, what is the process by which this is going on? I don't think we mentioned that before. Like how. I mean, there's a person inside these plants, but how do I? Why would I? Come there. What is the process by which this?
It's all about mainly karma. See, the soul has karma, and the karma makes it so a person takes birth in a particular body. See, when they transfer from one body to another body, according to their karma, and it also incorporates desires and attachments, we take birth in a lower form, a higher form, a more advanced form, etc., etc. And there's an evolutionary transmigration of the soul from lower forms of life to higher forms of life, not from an evolution of the physical bodies, the monkey becomes man kind of thing. It started with an amoeba and then it, evolved and it came from whatever, survival of the fittest and so on. According to the Vedas, that's not how it works, And it's pretty obvious because, after this theory of evolution was, established and accepted, nobody's seen it happen again. Nobody's ever seen a monkey
becoming a human,
become a man. Yeah, I mean, you can't duplicate it. It happened then, but why doesn't it happen now? Is it just a one-time event? But anyway, that's another subject. So eventually, by evolving from lower forms of life to higher forms of life, and higher forms means more advanced consciousness. I mean, it's not a plant consciousness lower and more dim, more covered than an animal consciousness, and there's different levels of animal consciousness as the soul moves to higher forms. The dolphins and the whales, they're still considered, animal forms, but they're, displaying more intelligence, than a chicken, and
but
etc.
this doesn't change
and then eventually
it doesn't change the value of the person. I guess that's an important point. Like
no, the soul's the same. It's just taking on different forms of life with the accompanying consciousness that goes with that form. See, you move into a dog body, you've got dog consciousness, and you don't have human consciousness. You got dog consciousness. And you do what dogs do. You eat what dogs eat, and you mate the way dogs mate, and you defend, with barking and teeth and fast legs, and you sleep, as best you can, So as we get to higher forms of life, eventually you get a human form. That's the point. The soul has evolved through all the different, various species of life to the human form. And now it gets human consciousness, which is what we talked about earlier, the mind, the intelligence, the abilities to question and, make choices and look up at the stars at night and, wonder. I wonder what's up there. I wonder if there's life on those, stars, and, how immense and how, vast the universe is, even thinking or knowing about a universe. That's a human thing.
Yeah.
Dogs don't know about humans, about universes, and astrology and astronomy and all these things. They don't have that. See? So the human form of life is a rare form of life. This was the point.
Yeah.
And it's called the precious human form of life because its purpose is to solve the miseries of life, to become free of the entanglements of the material existence. You see, to not just be thrown around on the wheel of birth and death, uncontrollably, taking a birth, living that life, whatever it is, coming to the end of that term, thrown again into, the wheel and popping out somewhere else and again and again and again ad infinitum. It's not a good situation to be. It's like being in a washing machine and just getting thrown in and popped out and thrown in and popped out. So the human form of life is, here's your solution. It's the loophole, so to speak. It's the facility. It's the precious gift, And that's why as soon as, this is again Vedic knowledge. I don't speak, and you also don't speak, something that's just from the mind. It's all, Vedically based truth.
Yeah.
And, so it's declared that at the time of creation, the Lord sent forth, all the living entities into his material creation, the demigods, the humans, the lower forms of life, etc., and they took their, assumed positions according to their past, activities, and then at the same time, he sent forth the Vedas. He gave the Vedic knowledge for the humans to have access to all this truth from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Not that some sage had to figure all this out, and maybe get it right and maybe get it wrong. It's descending. It's all part of the recipe.
Yeah.
Here's the material world, here's the living entities, here's the humans, and here's the Vedic knowledge. And you have the equipment, the facility, the ability to read this, to understand it, to apply it to your life, and become spiritually realized, self-realized.
Yeah.
See? You have that. God gives us all that. But if you take that gift of the human form and the Vedic knowledge and, so on, and just you don't use it at all, throw it away, or misuse it in various different ways, then you throw away the most valuable gift.
And it's
the precious gem.
And like you said, an opportunity. That's like a window of opportunity. You may not get the same, or at least for a long, long time, you may not get the same opportunity that you have right now.
Absolutely.
We have that.
Another declaration of Scripture is, if you don't use the human form of life for its intended purpose, spiritual realization, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's a saying in
other contexts.
Sports or about the body. If you don't use your muscles, they'll atrophy. You must use it, or you lose it. So if we don't use the human form of life, we lose it. What does that mean? You go back down into the lower forms of life. Again, depending on what you've done in this life. And now you're back on the cycle and the evolutions. And it could take millions of births to get another human form.
Wow.
In fact, it describes that this is the greatest fear, of a human, is to lose the human form of life. See? But spiritual realization saves one from the greatest fear. If you use the human form of life for its intended purpose, which we've said it again and again, spiritual realization, developing God consciousness, developing, harmony with God, a relationship, real relationship with God, etc. If you use it for that purpose, even if you're not completely successful, you don't make a complete success. See? You still get another human form next life. See? To continue your development.
Yeah.
See, it's like, okay, you made 10% progress. Okay? Next lifetime, you start at 11%. And in that lifetime, as a human, you come up to 30%. Next lifetime, you start at 31. And you continue and continue until you reach 100%. And then you are free. Then you go back to the spiritual world, our natural home. You've developed that relationship with God. You see, your spirit soul. You're not the material body. You're living that truth, you see. And along the way, of course, you're increasing, real happiness and pleasure in your life. You've got a firm foundation of existence. You're not thrown all over the place by every little upheaval in the material world. All kinds of benefits, all kinds, on every level, you see. But, if you don't use it for that, you lose it. And what a waste, what a loss, what a loss.
And and the reason that we would do that is that why is it that we can't be honest with ourselves? Like we can't, I guess we can't step away from the false ego. We're stuck in a situation where we're stuck in the illusion that we centered our life around this illusion that we're in, and that's all that we have faith in. Like that, we think that's all we cling on to, the illusion of who we are and what will save us, and that we're our bodies, and it's going to end when we die anyway. And then who cares about what we're speaking about right now, because it's going to end. So there's no,
Yeah, I mean, why worry about next life when there is no next life.
I mean, that's easy. Makes it.
Yeah. Just enjoy now as much as possible. But, it's a false philosophy, It's a flawed philosophy of life.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to listen to authorities who know the truth and not listen to, quote, authorities who have no idea, And we're fed lies our whole life, from the very beginning. If my parents, who are the original teachers this life, don't know these truths, then they're going to teach me what I don't need to know. They're going to teach me falsehood.
Yeah.
They're going to teach me you are the body.
Yeah.
Look in the mirror. This is you. I mean, parents do this, right? They should put a mirror in front of the baby and they go, you, see, you, this is you, back and forth. They're reinforcing the false identity concept, and as you grow, they and everyone else, continues to reinforce this and reinforce this, and so, the learning process is taking us in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's taking us away from the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more it's propagated, the more it's propagated. I mean, if we've got a whole society in this consciousness, then the members of that society that come into that society, this is going to be their learning as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to learn? I mean, you don't know anything when you're born. So whatever you learn from others, in personal experience. Well, the personal experience in most cases is material and sensual and, the pleasure, pain, experiences. This makes me feel good. This hurts me, and so on. So that's not an avenue of education that's dependable. So that's why the Vedas from the very beginning were given. Here is the textbook, here is the teaching, and here are the masters. See, there's always been masters from the very beginning. Lord Brahma, the original spiritual master in the material world. Our sampradaya, our disciplic line comes from Lord Brahma, Brahma Sampradaya. He gave this knowledge. Krishna gave it to him in his heart. He taught it to his son Narada Muni. You see, the great sage who, has taught this to others. And, he taught it to Vyasa and so on. And Vyasa wrote it in the Vedic literature. And, many, many, many wonderful, purely realized teachers, presenting this knowledge.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, he didn't come here to teach people to split atoms. He didn't come here to teach people to, enjoy life with better, inventions of material, sources. He came to teach people the truth, love for God. He was simple. He taught people to stay simple and focus on the absolute.
Yeah.
To pray to God. God will give you everything you need. Why worry about what you're going to eat tomorrow, where you're going to sleep tomorrow? Jesus is teaching. Look at the lilies of the field. Even Solomon doesn't have attire like them. Solomon was the rich king, right? He had all the robes and all the jewels and whatever he had. He said, even Solomon is not attired with such beauty as they are, And yet they don't work, neither do they toil, and God gives them everything. Look at the beast of the field. They get their food. They have a place to sleep. The birds have a nest. Everybody's being provided for. So what makes you think mankind, who is on the highest level, of, development, won't be taken care of by God if you,
Exactly.
just focus on God? That's what Jesus taught. And so, every great teacher has taught the same thing. And every pseudo teacher has taught the opposite. Greatness means material achievement. What you can conquer, what you can own, what you can control, the fame you can accumulate, the sensual pleasures that you can experience, is success.
And that's what's being promoted as well. So obviously that's what we see, that's what we're exposed to, that's what we're affected by.
Yeah. And more the words of the masters, be it Jesus or be it Muhammad, or be it all our great saints, Narada Muni, Lord Brahma, Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, all is being just taken away. I mean, it's like not being promoted, it's being quietened, silenced.
Yeah.
During the COVID, restrictions, the churches were attacked more than any other business or institution. Their lockdowns were more severe and more extended than any other. The liquor stores could be open, the food stores could be open. Yeah. All these nightclubs, many could be open, although, many eventually couldn't, but they were termed essential. The food stores, the places that sell alcohol and all that, they were essential to society. Abortion clinics stayed open. That's an essential part of society. See, but churches, they're not essential. They're not necessary. Close those guys up. You see, so you can see what's essential and what's not in the minds of these people. Mm-hmm. Spiritual life is not essential. Mm-hmm. It's actually in the way. It's a hindrance. It's an obstacle. It's a drawback.
It's true. It's true.
And it brainwashes people.
like we're not already brainwashed. I mean,
yeah. It's just that they can scrub our brains with their detergent, and spiritual detergents aren't allowed.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
It's unfortunate because we've gone away from the human form of life. Mm. See, now here's another interesting point. I don't know what time it is. Yeah, we got time. Here's another interesting point. The Vedas declare that just because you have a human form of life, 2 hands, 2 legs, et cetera, human form, we can talk and walk and speak our, chosen language and whatever, doesn't mean you're a human. That's not the definition of a human. See? A definition of a human is when you use the human form of life to inquire into the absolute truth. That's when one becomes a human. And it says, now is the time to inquire into the absolute truth. So all that existence in the, quote, human form up until that point is considered animal life. It is not considered human life. Because the animals have 4 propensities. We've talked about this before. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. See?
Yeah.
So if I take my human form and all I do is use it for those 4 activities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, I'm still on the animal level. I haven't done anything human yet, And as we know, that's basically all it's going on. Just glorified animal life. Eating gourmet food. Oh, tonight I'm going to have Mexican. Oh, tomorrow night I'm having Italian. I'm going to go to this very elaborate restaurant and have, delicious food. It's still eating, It's nothing but eating, just using the mind and the intelligence, the glorified human facilities to advance the eating process.
To make it more civilized and make it appear like it's not actually, it's more than an animal instinct.
And more sensually pleasurable. That's the main reason. That's part of what we call civilization, is increased sensual experience.
Yeah.
Why is some food considered good and others not? Because it's sensual. It stimulates the tongue in a more pleasurable way. One of the biggest complaints of people who had COVID or have COVID now, a friend of mine, just recently, he has it. He's just getting over it.
Taste.
And what happened? He lost his sense of smell and his sense of taste. And what did that do? It made it so he couldn't enjoy. You can't enjoy food if you can't taste it. You can't enjoy food if you can't smell it. Oh, what is the aroma of pizza? I don't know. I can't smell anything. Fresh baked bread, I can't smell anything. So it takes a lot of the impetus for eating away. Can't smell and can't taste, why eat? And so people lose weight.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, maybe, for some.
I mean, how long are you just going to chew? It's like kind of boring. It's just like a hassle. Chewing and swallowing and chewing and swallowing. If you can't, it's not worth it. Why bother? Just eat a little bit. Okay, it's done. But when it's all full on smell and taste, you overeat. I'll have one more serving of this. I'll have one more piece of cake. I'll have one more of this and that. See? Because there's pleasure. There's pleasure. See? So anyway, the point is, we have glorified the eating process. That eagle that caught that fish is not going to take it out and fillet it and saute it and, put all kind of spices on it and so on like that. It's just going to gobble it down for survival. And that's the end of the story. So eating and then sleeping. We've developed all kinds of elaborate sleeping, facilities. Softer beds or more firm beds, whatever your choice. For a while there was a big rage of water beds, and air conditioning if it's too hot and heat if it's too cold, and soft pillows or firm pillows, again, according to your taste, and, very, nice covers and snuggly things, and, but it's still sleeping, It's just sleeping. It's nothing, spiritual about any of that. Mating, we don't even have to talk about that. I mean, that's just gone off the scale, in all kinds of, misdirected ways. And then, defending with our advanced intelligence, we're defending with nuclear weapons, smart bombs, automatic weapons. Now sonic weapons are, being talked about and experimented with. Biowarfare, what is that all about? Where did this whole thing start that we're struggling with worldwide right now? Supposedly bioweapons development, gain of function research. There's debates here. I'm not taking any side. But, there's certainly bioweapon research going on. Whether COVID-19 started out of that or not, everybody can draw their own conclusions. But it's the same point. We're using amazing intelligence to take viruses from a bat, and another virus from another bat, and combine them together, and make it so they gain function so they can jump and infect a human.
Yeah.
That's what gain of function research is. Let's see what we can do with all these different viruses and combine them and, modify them and whatever, genetically engineer them, and so that they can infect humans, and then we can just put a little bit over here, spread it around in whatever way we do, through the air, through water, through whatever, and achieve a certain end of killing a lot of people or making a lot of people sick or debilitating a whole segment of society or removing a whole segment of society, according to, what is that? Is that spiritual or is that misuse of the human form of life? See, and you don't have to be an intelligent person to answer that question. You know, is this research necessary? People say it is. No, it's not. You know, if you follow God's plan, if you're in harmony with God's system, all those things in life that are necessary are going to be automatically there, and you're going to have a different kind of happiness, not just dependent on sensual experiences, but internal happiness. Happiness is in the heart. That's where the soul is. Spiritual pleasure, spiritual happiness, spiritual fulfillment and satisfaction is real pleasure, and nothing external can take it away. You know, the world can fall down. You know, the fires can burn up everything, whatever. See, I'm still happy because that was not my source of happiness. I was not dependent on that.
No.
You see, it may be a hassle, it may be a discomfort, a disturbance in whatever way it is, but I'm still the same person I always was before and after that. See, that's what you get from spiritual achievement, using the human form of life.
No.
See, but as long as I'm operating as an animal with human facilities, all I'm doing is creating problems, making a mess in the world,
Yeah.
making a big mess.
Not
in the
just
world.
for yourself, but for others as well.
For everybody. So, you know, you got all this, and you wind up with a society where you can't breathe the air, you can't drink the water, you know, the food is genetically modified, and you know, there's no suitable place to live. Crime is everywhere. You know, you're afraid to go out of your house. There's many places now where people don't even go out of their house, especially at night. But now it's going also during the day, because more open crimes used to be the criminals did their stuff during the night. Now they do it anytime and every time. Doesn't matter where they are and who they are. You know, they don't care. They just do whatever they want to do. Kill people, behead people. You know, one girl was beheaded, you know, a couple of days ago in America, you know, in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, in a crowded place.
What?
You know, beheaded. I mean, and it wasn't, you know, some punishment for some crime. It was just a fit of anger, you know, so, which came from lust, which came from whatever. I mean, the whole scenario, you know. So, you know, is this human life? Is this how we're supposed to live? And the answer is no. This is not human life. This is prison. This is turmoil. This is, you know, worse than the worst case scenario. You know, we're not supposed to live in fear. We're supposed to live in exhilaration and, you know, excitement. And no, we're protected by the Lord. And, you know, people are on the higher level of and standard of living, and people don't do those things.
Wow.
You know, they don't do those things because the consciousness doesn't do that, you know.
Yeah.
So there is no substitute for the purpose of the human form of life being utilized correctly. There is no substitute for that, for the betterment of everybody. So spreading this knowledge, adopting this knowledge, applying this knowledge is the greatest welfare activity.
And we've described that before. Yeah, we've talked about that before.
Yeah, the greatest welfare activity. You cannot do more for another person than that.
Yes.
So the greatest teachers are the greatest welfare workers. You know. And they care. They care about people.
Exactly. You see, like, spiritual teachers often seen like, oh, but, you know, they're helping you in some part of your life with some, you know, deeper, something that's not really connected to reality. It's just some like added thing to your life and some interest, and they're maybe helping you there, but that's completely different from what you're saying. Like that's
Yeah.
They're helping you.
So as you've read in Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, you know, there's principles of religion. This is not about one sectarian belief system dominating the world.
Exactly.
And that's what people often say is they're afraid of.
Exactly.
You know, they're afraid of some particular sect or belief system taking over. And if you're not that, if you're not a Christian, if that's the dominating system, or if you're not a Muslim, or if you're not a Hindu, or if you're not a Buddhist, then you will be ostracized, or, life will be uncomfortable, or you'll be persecuted, or whatever,
And that's what we know from other societies, like from previous societies where that has been the case. We've seen that happen.
Yes, but that's not religion. That's pseudo-religion. That's people that are doing that in the name of religion. They don't understand religion at all. See? But in the Vedic system, and again, referring back to Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, there's principles of religion, and we've talked about austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, the 4 pillars of religion. They should be incorporated in everybody's life. The government should incorporate this. The government should be founded on these principles of religion. Not a religious group controlling the government.
Yeah.
The principles of religion.
I see what you mean.
What's wrong with truthfulness as a political system? What's wrong in a political system to have austerity and cleanliness, you see, and mercy? I mean, that's ideal. That's perfect.
Well, because we're always we're very skeptical towards mixing religion and state affairs, because I guess of the way that we see religion, like a sectarian belief system that is controlling with all of that, which it brings with it, the fanaticism or the
that's the point.
The we
that's
and them.
Misinformation.
Yeah.
That's false news.
False news.
Fake news. As is so commonly, said today. Oh, that's fake news. That's disinformation. That's misinformation. This is whatever.
But we have no other. I mean, we haven't seen any other. Most people haven't seen any other force than that in the name of religion. Like, that is what goes as religion. That is, like, what else would it be? Like, how else would it be?
Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but there has to be true teachers, a true master who has full vision, understanding, knowledge, that's, taking the people who want to follow his guidance, taking them to this higher level of understanding, and then they can give it to someone else who can give it to someone else.
Yeah.
And as we've said many times, each person who implements it in his own life is helping society. Even though you may not be promoting it, if you're living it, you're helping society. And you can spread good just like you can spread bad. It's possible to spread good as well as bad. So if your consciousness is as it should be, if you're actually living, a human life, inquiring about the absolute truth, maybe you don't know much, but maybe you can, inspire someone else to start asking questions as you yourself are asking.
Right.
You see? People are afraid maybe to ask questions, and especially those kind of questions. It's like they don't even want to admit that they're interested in that subject.
Yeah.
So, one person can, maybe give some strength to another person.
Yeah. No, because again, don't talk about politics and religion, because it becomes we and them, and it's a collision there because of the. Yeah, exactly. So that's where we're at now as the world turns. We're in that compromised position in life, and all we can do is speak the truth. I mean, we can't change anybody's life. We're not trying to change anybody. We talked about that last time, I think. No.
We're not trying to convert anybody. We're just trying to present truth. And if someone is interested, they will somehow be guided to come in contact with it. And yeah.
I have a quote that we might read, that we might end with, and because I think we've, you see if you want to say something more, but this is a preface, this is the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Bhaktivedanta Swami says, we must know the present need of human society. And what is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause.
Yeah. And what is that common goal, the common cause and the common goal? Spiritual realization. If you've got that as the common meaning, just as you described, Bhaktivedanta described, world view, then yeah, you're going to make progress. Yeah, common cause, common goal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what the world needs, not more, advanced technology. But as far as technology goes, I just want to mention that people say, well, look at you guys. I mean, look at you. You're here on the internet.
This expensive microphones.
You've got cameras, you've got microphones, you've got headphones, you're, connected in whatever way you are and whatever. We can use everything in God's service, everything. Yeah. So we'll take this technology and we'll use it, for this purpose. We're not afraid of technology. We're not saying technology is bad in and of itself. It's misuse of technology that's causing the problem. So if you want to develop all this amazing things that have been developed, we'll use it. We will definitely use it. And as it gets more advanced, we'll use that too. For this purpose. So it would be foolish for us to reject it and say, oh, no, I don't. How could, you're in Norway, I'm in Kazakhstan. How could we be having this conversation, which is broadcast to the world, really?
No.
Without this technology? We could not.
Writing a letter and then 2 weeks later, or 2 months later, you get the letter.
And who what are you going to do with that letter? How many people you going to send that letter to? You don't even have addresses. Yeah. So it's an amazing facility.
But again,
take the facility.
Yeah, like Bhaktivedanta says, it's human society is broader than in the Middle Ages. We have the opportunity now to. This technology is giving us the opportunity to connect, but we can use that and we should use it in the correct way with the correct understanding.
Yes. Use it as humans, not animals.
And I was just thinking, eating as well. We don't stop eating, but we eat for spiritual realization, to use this body because I'm sitting here and I had breakfast, otherwise I wouldn't be able to sit here and have energy to speak, I needed the breakfast too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I needed to sleep and
you need food. That's how it's designed. The body is designed to eat food for energy and sustenance and development. But again, we take the eating necessity and offer the food to God before we eat it, which removes all karma. That's another whole subject. We've talked about it before. Removes the karma and actually spiritualizes the food. So now your breakfast was not just whatever it was.
Oats and
I don't know
oats
what it was. Oats.
Sandwich.
Oats and raisins and whatever. But it was actually spiritual food. It was actually spiritually potent food. So it nourishes the body, gives you energy and so on, but it also, purifies the heart and the mind. Yeah. So you can take everything and use it with knowledge for the betterment of yourself and others.
Wow. Let's chant. I have nothing more to say to that. That's perfect.
Yeah, we've said enough. We've said enough. Thank you. Okay. So our mantra is going to be Har Goranga Vebo. As always, because like I explain each time, it's not because we don't know other mantras. It's just because we try to keep it simple. You don't have to learn a new mantra. You don't have to struggle with the words. All you got to do is relax and chant. And that's what we hope you will do.
And you're very good at the one chord melodies. That's simple.
Simple. When you take a guy who doesn't know how to do much and he's got to do something, he's going to keep it simple. Haribo Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. 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 Haribo. Haribo Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Haribo. Haribo Goranga, Haribo. Hey. Goranga, Haribo. 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 Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo,
Haribo. Haribo. Goranga, Haribo.
Goranga, Haribo.
Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Haribol, Haribol.
Haribo. Did you hear the drum?
I didn't.
Oh,
I did. I hear it now, yeah. I hear it now. Good.
yeah.
Great. Yeah. Drums,
Thanks.
guitars, whatever we have, we'll use.
Yeah, exactly like technology.
All right, Ruben, thank you very
All
much. Always a pleasure, you know. We
Yeah.
call it a rap session, I guess. Spiritual rap session. We're just rapping, just talking. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, put it
Yeah.
out there and we. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Great.
breaking trail. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what we have to do, you know. That's because, you know, that's what's right to do. And that's what we do.
Yeah. You know,
Staying
one
true.
person said, said something, do the right thing for the right reason, and it'll always come out good. So if you think about that, that's very, very true. Right thing for the right reason. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Namaste, Haribol.